I'm Marc Dresner, and this is Inside Clinical, a special interview series featuring experts and leaders at the forefront of drug development, clinical research, trials, and operations. Inside Clinical is brought to you by the Partnerships in Clinical Trials Conference. This is an annual event where clinical decision makers meet to accelerate science, innovate, and foster relationships, now approaching its 23rd year. Joining us today is Dr. Eric Topol. He is the director of the Scripps Translational Science Institute. Eric, welcome to Inside Clinical.
Thanks, Mark. Great to be with you.
It's a pleasure to have you. You're a practicing cardiologist, and you've been involved in clinical research for decades now.
I'm afraid to admit that's true.
What has changed and what hasn't that needs to?
Well, I was involved with these mega trials in cardiology, 10,000 plus patients. In fact, one trial, Gusto, was 41,000 patients in 20 countries. And I basically, over time, realized this is not a good model. This accounts for years of work, hundreds of millions of dollars of costs. And frequently, we either have a negative trial or we eke out a little benefit. But we have a new revolution going on in medicine where we have so much information about each individual that we could have a guaranteed to succeed model of clinical trials, which is so much more exciting. Small trials done quickly, very inexpensive, using genomics and wireless sensors.
Right.
So this is a whole new world.
How common are those kinds of trials right now?
Well, they're taking hold. I mean, we've seen a really terrific example in cystic fibrosis, which is we knew the genetic cause since the 80s, but now because of framing the trial right with the right mutation, we're seeing it throughout many different cancers, where specific genes that are targeted with a medication that works on that gene has breakthrough type effects. So I think that's the future of all of clinical trials. This is just the beginning of that. And again, it's different tools that we didn't have before. And this is getting exquisite, panoramic, comprehensive information about each individual and appreciating this science of individuality.
The technology has certainly changed. Matching it up with the way to get with the way to, if you will, modernize the trial seems to be an issue, depending on who I talk to.
Right. Well, in medicine, we're very ritualistic. This is the way we did it.
Sure.
Double-blind, randomized. That's not the way it needs to be. In fact, you could even argue that once you understand the science, let's say it's a mutation, let's say it's the physiologic sensor, it would almost be unethical to have a placebo arm. You just have to have extraordinary, overwhelming efficacy. You have to have absence of serious side effects, which often, again, could be screened using the same tools. So I think this is a reset, and that doesn't come easy to the medical community.
You've identified kind of a systemic challenge. And if you'll pardon the pun, what's your prescription for addressing it?
Well, that is, in my view, this creative destruction of medicine that is transformation via radical innovation. And it's going to happen through the public, through the consumers, if it doesn't happen from within the medical community. The prescription is to first become fully aware of these new tools, whether it's sequencing or whether it's using physiologic sensors or pocket imaging devices, whatever those tools are. Not the electronic medical record per se, but these other information tools. And then to start to become one to embrace and get activated about how that could fit in to a new model of trials, and one in which we have extraordinary communication with our patients that we're testing, small trials, fast trials. And think of everyone is basically one with a rare disease. Because that, whether it's known as a common disease, it's rare because it's all about N of 1. If that's the mentality, we could really jump forward.
You mentioned the consumer being a critical component to sort of moving the needle and making progress on changing or improving the model. What do you see as being crucial to engaging the patient or taking that patient-centric approach that everyone is talking about?
Well, I think we do know that social networking has changed the world, and this whole idea that, well, Gonem put in his book about Revolution 2.0, the power of the people is greater than the people in power. That's why medicine's going to change in a radical way. So the consumer can, the public can drive this, and eventually it will, if the community that organizes, designs, and executes these clinical trials doesn't get it. There's just too much new capability to actualize now. It's just a matter of time.
So essentially, the message I'm going to take away as a key takeaway here is things are changing quite radically. There is a revolution underway, and those in the clinical research community, all stakeholders, really need to stay on top of that and help drive it, because if they don't, someone else will.
Yeah, it's time to get out of the cookie cutter era of clinical trials and go into the creative digital world. It's just waiting to happen.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Thank you very, very much, Dr. Topol,
Sure.
for your time. It was a pleasure.
Great to meet with you, Mark, and great to have these exchange of ideas with you.
Likewise, likewise. That concludes this episode of Inside Clinical. I'm Marc Dresner. Thanks for tuning in.